Let's just go ahead and get started this evening. Archie will jump in here in a minute as soon as he is able. I wanted to welcome all of our guests, make sure I'm not on mute, which I have a tendency to do. And our panelists this evening. I wanted to first start by welcoming all of our new council members. And I will give them an opportunity real quick to introduce themselves to the community. And we can go ahead and start with Angelo, if you'd like.
Hello, my name is Angelo Ragland. I am studying at CNM. My major is criminology, and I've been living here for almost 21 years. And thank you.
Thank you. It's good to have you joining us. Welcome. Virginia.
Hi everyone, my name is Virginia Perez Ortega and I'm a community organizer in the International District. I'm an immigrant from Mexico and mother of teenagers and lots of community leader. I would like to present, wear that hat here at this meeting. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here in this space and my first meeting as an official member.
Thank you, welcome. And last but not least, Angel.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Angel Garcia. I am also one of the panelists today because I work for the City of Albuquerque's Violence Intervention Program. I've been in Albuquerque 4 years now, and I am focusing some of my attention and some of my endeavors in the Southeast because it reminds me a lot of South Central where I come from. And they're usually ignored areas, and I'd like to bring about or help out however I can in that area.
Thank you and welcome. Mike, go ahead. You can go next.
Okay. I don't usually talk about myself, but I do want people to know that while I'm serving on your CPC, I do not consider it my right or privilege to hear only the things I agree with or want to hear, but rather it's my responsibility to hear and thoughtfully consider all perspectives on community policing. And my goal is to help foster a safer and more prosperous community for all our members, your families, friends, neighbors, co-workers, our police force, who are often our neighbors too. I have 3 of them within walking distance, and the homeless and less fortunate among us, because we all have families we want to return safely to at the end of each day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I am Susie Sanchez-Begg. I'm the chair of the Southeast Area Command's Community Policing Council. I've been on the council for about 3 years. Before that, I came to the meetings as a community member. I also work for a small nonprofit here in the International District, working with people who are in recovery and some that are unsheltered. So, and I'd like to welcome all of you. So first, I would like for our council members, if you could please look at the agenda. See if there are any changes that need made. I will be deferring the May minutes as we have a couple of members that will be abstaining, and I don't have a quorum, so we will hold off on that. We'll defer that. But if you'd look over the agenda and see if there's anything else that I've been remiss with or that we need to change. If not, I will definitely entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
So moved. Thank you. First, just a little bit of housekeeping. Just basically, just reminding everybody of the What You Learned in Kindergarten book. Be kind, be courteous. Don't be angry or use language that none of us would consider appropriate for a venue this way. And just be respectful of all of our speakers this evening, please. And with that, since we will be deferring the May minutes, I would like to, oh, I see Member Archuleta has jumped on. Archie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry, I was having some issues with that space between the phone and the chair. Good evening, Jeff Archuleta. Archie, I'm a retired military Navy veteran. Work at the VA hospital, healthcare for homeless veterans. I want to welcome the new members, by the way. Welcome aboard again. Looking forward to working with you, and any community members that are out there, welcome as well. And thank you for your time, and looking forward to tonight's session.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to get on, Archie. I appreciate it. Let's see. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our panelists, Gerri Bachicha and Angel Garcia and their team. And they are with the city's violence intervention program. And I will mute myself and allow them to move forward with their presentation. And I don't know if you all want people to, if you're going to hold the chat questions till the end, or if you have your team wants to kind of go through them a little bit, or if you had even thought about that, just let us know how you want us to proceed with that.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Theresa Gonzales. We'll do formal introductions in just a second, but thank you for the introductions from the CPC Council. Just wanted to clarify that we will take questions in the chat. And we have a lot of ground to cover, so we would love to provide space for you after the presentation to have a richer discussion. But please make sure to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that. Now I'll hand it over to Gerri Bachicha.
And Theresa, I don't know whether oh, okay, you're gonna share the screen. Great, great. Okay. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to come and update you on our program. I know that we have had the opportunity to speak at quite a few CPC meetings, and it's a great time to come back and update everybody on what we do. And so I want to introduce myself first. I am the program manager for the Violence Intervention Program. I came on in June of 2020. So this is my year anniversary being with the program. And my background is, yeah, I have a kind of a diverse background, but all in kind of social services work. I was the executive director of Rape Crisis Domestic Violence Center in Pennsylvania, and then I moved to the Southwest, and I never left, mostly because I got addicted to green chili. However, I worked for CYFD. I work for Protective Services as well as the Behavioral Health Division in the statewide administration. And one of the programs I oversaw was peer, bringing up peer workers within the state. And if any of you were around when that started to happen in the behavioral health system, that dates me, so you'll know how long I've been doing this work. I also have done a ton of juvenile justice system reform. I work for Bernalillo County, which is a national model site for juvenile justice reform. and now I work for the city. So I'm looking forward to continuing to implement the violence intervention program after the first year. So I want to, we just onboarded some new staff who actually a couple of months ago, but they're just, now that the pandemic's opening up, we can introduce them formally and they'll be out in the community with us, with Angel and I. So we have a really great team, and I will pass the introductions on to Angel next.
Hi, everybody. So, Angel Garcia, my name. I am the social services coordinator for the violence intervention program, and the experience I bring to this position is I have over 20 plus years of gangs, narcotics, and corrections experience, mainly because I was a gang member, sold drugs, and I've been in prison. So I was the person hired to reach out to the people in the community that are identified through our program who have walked very, very similar shoes as I have in the past. So we attribute some of the successes that we have because I'm able to make a connection with the people that we're trying to serve and the participants that we talk to. And that's very important, as we'll discuss later, because making people feel comfortable that have historically never received services or have never wanted services is of the utmost importance, So I'll pass it on to Dr. Saundra Trujillo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saundra Trujillo. I have a PhD in criminology, criminal justice from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. I taught at UNM in criminology and sociology, as well as at CNM in criminology and sociology for well over 10 years. And I'm honored to be working with the violence intervention program, kind of helping with some of their statistics and some of their evaluation measures.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. My name is Theresa Gonzales, and I am native to New Mexico. I am also previously incarcerated and was homeless most of my childhood. But the funny thing is that I went I lived in the Southeast neighborhood for a majority of my youth or childhood. And I lived on almost every single street in the entire Southeast area. So I lived on Dallas, I lived on Pennsylvania, I lived on Texas, and so on and so forth. And so being a transient and sort of displaced often in my own community, where I have 4 generations on both sides of my family, was always a challenge for myself and my family, trying to find a sense of connection in land that was stolen. And so, in this role, I specifically have been doing, I went back to school as a first generation college student, and I've raised 4 children, and now I have a granddaughter. 3 of my children live here, and they're also, of the Black descent, as well as, Hispano Indigenous. And, with that, they have experienced a lot in terms of violence directly, and then also the cycles of violence in my own family. I have been doing this work around racial and ethnic disparities in the criminal justice system for almost 20 years, starting off as a direct recipient of services, but also getting my degree and being able to travel even nationally to do consulting related to this work. Most specifically, or recently, I left to the Bay Area and was doing national consulting in the Midwest, Kansas, St. Louis, and also several jurisdictions in California, around criminal justice reform and alternatives to detention for youth and incarceration for adults. I've been in the Bay Area for the past 5 years, and I've learned a ton around really successful policy strategies, as well as local and community-centered approaches to build up the necessary capacity and resources to ensure that our communities who are closest to the pain have access to the resources and the power that they need to enact the change that's most important. So I'm just really honored and humbled to be here with you all to share some of our work today.
So we'll go ahead and get started by talking about the gun violence that's occurring in the Southeast area. And when I talk about gun violence tonight, we'll be focusing on the shootings that have occurred with injury and without injury. So the first graph shows you 2019 and 2020. It's a comparison of all of the shootings that occurred in the Southeast area over the 2019-2020 timeframe by quarter. And probably of no surprise to anyone, the 2020 numbers were quite a bit higher than what we saw in 2019. Okay, Theresa. Taking a look at 2021, we have our first almost 2 full quarters worth of shootings with and without injury data for the Southeast area. And it's pretty interesting. What we see is that in 2021, in the first quarter, the number of shootings in the Southeast area with and without injury pretty much matched those of 2020. And then for the first half of June, here is what's reflected in the April to June quarter for 2021. We can see that it looks like we're significantly lower, but we still have 2 weeks left of June. Okay, Theresa. Go back. So I don't know if you saw it. Theresa, go back more. The yellow line that is trying to show up here is showing you what it would look like if we have the exact same amount of shootings with and without injury for the second half of June that we had in the first half. And if that's the case, then this second quarter in 2021 would have quite a few less shootings with and without injury in the Southeast area than what we saw in 2020. And in fact, just a little bit more than what we saw in 2019. Okay. All right, so taking a look at shootings with injury, again, 2020 was higher than 2019. That holds true as well with shootings without injury. Go ahead. And then to date, looking again, shootings with injury for the Southeast area in the first and second quarters from 2019 through yesterday, June 16th. We see a really similar pattern. We see that shootings were increasing, shootings with injury were increasing in the first quarter, 2019, 2020 to 2021. And now in the second quarter, it may be again that we will see fewer shootings with injury in the second quarter than we saw this time last year. Same kind of pattern is holding true for shootings without injury, again through yesterday. In fact, shootings without injury in the Southeast Area Command were slightly less in the first quarter of this year than they were last year. And we, again, are hoping, in large part due to what the Violence Intervention Program is doing in combination with some of the things that APD is doing, we will see fewer shootings without injury in the second quarter. Just one more slide is looking at shootings with injury that occurred in the Southeast area by age groups through yesterday from 2019 through 2021, June 16. Similar to previous years, it's that 25 to 29-year-old age range that has the most shooting with injuries. Last year, 30 to 34 kind of topped it, but it doesn't look right now like we'll see the exact same pattern, although there's still 6 months left in the year. So that's the gun violence shooting with injury and without injury data up to date from 2019.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trujillo. Really important information and to kind of set the landscape in terms of what we're seeing quantitatively for the Southeast area. I'm going to quickly share our model, and so that way you all are familiar and have an overview of what work we're currently doing. So beginning in January of last year, the inception of the VIP came into place based on community and public outcry, and also the mayor's desire to want to implement some best practices and evidence-based work that we have done, that we have seen nationally. This is some of the work that I was able to do in California and then saw it done. There are over 60 jurisdictions across the nation that have employed similar models that focus uniquely on gun violence strategies. And in our particular model, it's a pilot because we just completed year one. We have focused on these core areas. First, I just wanted to share generally our mission and vision has been to reduce gun violence in the city of Albuquerque by identifying and engaging the drivers of violent crime. The larger aspirational vision is to break the intergenerational cycle of violence. Very aspirational. We have a lot of work to do, and we know that it's not going to happen overnight, but we are very hopeful and committed. Our target audience, or what we call a risk profile, is the 0.01% of the total population that drives gun violence. So we're talking about the highest risk individuals possible. And so with those, with that mission and with the audience in mind, we have identified approaches that we feel we had the resources and also the staff capacity to focus efforts on. And starting with direct communication, these are called custom notifications or call-ins, but these are in-person, respectful, and dignified communications with the most highest risk individuals that we're able to identify through our partnership with APD. We'll talk a little bit more about that data and what we've been able to achieve a little bit later, but I'm just going to give you an overview of the model. Secondly, is a social services support that we'll talk about next. But Angel, for example, has been able to develop relationship-based engagement with these high-risk individuals based on the direct communications that we have with them, and providing them with case management, community-based social services through our VIP All-In Network, which is comprised of over 20 based organizations here that are existing in the city that can help these specific individuals with various needs, whether it's mental health services, relocation, safety net services, housing, and other familial needs. Third, we have focused deterrence, and this is really a narrow focus on law enforcement actions, which is really our most exhaustive, or the resource that we don't use until, unless we absolutely need to, but this is through intentional management and partnership with prosecutors and other law enforcement agencies. And again, this would be after exhausting every effort possible to try to prevent violence or even retaliation in the community. Number 4 is our pre-arrest diversion and mediation program, which is also known as restorative justice. The goal of this is healing and reducing the cycle of harm involved in each criminal act. We are building out this program. It's fairly new as well, and we are working with offenders and their families at each interaction to intervene. And we are also building curriculum and training that we can provide to community, so community members will be able to help to mitigate the conflict within themselves and also within neighborhoods. Lastly, we have the data analysis support, which is super important that our work is informed by the data. So we have a greater picture, and we're also able to disaggregate that data as well. So we know by race and ethnicity, age, and geography, right, and the types of offenses in order to get the information we need. So that way we have targeted approaches. And Dr. Trujillo is managing that piece. Out of this, our program overarching has been, for the past year, focused on these primary areas. The shooting review is where APD and the DA have convened with other law enforcement agencies to facilitate a weekly shooting review that some of you may have heard of. Multi-agencies, or these multi-agency entities come together to coordinate and resolve the cases by identifying the population at highest risk and being able to identify trends and themes by area again. And also engaging the local commanders within each of the different areas so that we were able to, clearly know what's going on. The customer notifications, I spoke about the direct communications. We want to make sure they're respectful and that we're providing the needed and desired services by consent by the folks who we engage. And we've had a tremendous amount of response, positive response and access to that. We've actually had over 90% success rate in being able to provide resources to the folks we have engaged with. The VIP all-in I shared is that a larger network, and we invite others to participate in this network, but we want to coordinate existing services. We're not trying to create new work, but helping to provide resources and support to existing programs in the community that with folks who have lived experience and are able to be culturally relevant and reach the folks who need it the most. Next, we'll talk a little bit more about our success rates and a little bit more about our candidates and participants.
Before we go into these tables, I'm hoping that Angel will jump in really quickly and go ahead and explain really specifically what a custom notification is, how that happens.
Yes. So a custom notification is when we go out into the community and try to reach out to our participants that are identified through those weekly shooting review meetings. As Theresa said earlier, the shooting reviews are hosted by APD, the DA's office, and all law enforcement partners are in those meetings, and including us, the VIP team. So they review shootings from Wednesday to Wednesday of every week, shootings with injury, firearms arrest, shootings without injury, property damage. And from there, if there's no active investigation on any of the participants, because we don't want to interfere in anything, if there's no active investigation, if they don't have any warrants, and we deem they fit our criteria, which is basically somebody who has been victimized, somebody who is a known associate of a person who has perpetrated violence in our community. We target their networks because our way of thinking is if this person is running around with guns, more than likely their whole network is as well. So we try to reach out to influencers of people. And at times we have gone inside and conducted custom notifications inside MDC. And one time we did it with a juvenile that was in detention via Zoom. So the purpose of the custom notification, there's two messages. I go out with a commander and a deputy commander of APD, and they have their message to give. Their message is that they are part of this community, that they don't want to see them hurt, killed, or go to prison for committing. MDC, Jessica, is a Metropolitan Detention Center. It's the county jail here. So that's APD's message. They don't want to see them hurt, killed, or in prison, locked up. And then they turn around and introduce me, and I'm the guy that offers the services. I talk with them. I ask them what they need, and try to help and provide an honorable exit out of the lifestyle. So whether it be job training, job placement, somebody called last week, they just needed emergency diapers. We provided those. Whatever the services that Albuquerque offers, those are the services that we offer to our participants. And we also we call it a custom notification because we try to customize each visit to the individual, pertaining to their history and also their likes or their dislikes. Like on one occasion, we had a gentleman that identified as a rapper. He was in a rap group, So we took somebody out with us that's involved in the music industry. We customized that message to him, you know. So however, whatever services are needed, we try to provide that and try to make them comfortable while they're accessing those services.
Thank you. So I see some of the questions about, what the success rate is, how well folks are receiving the message that Angel and the officers who got on a custom notification, how well they're receiving those messages. So far to date, we've had 170 people in the Albuquerque area who have been nominated for violence intervention. Angel, with his team, has contacted 88% of those, 149 people. There's about 12% who our team has tried to contact, but who has been unable to contact. And this is largely because either the person has left their address, their last known address that we had for them, and we can't find them again. It could be that they are homeless, and so it's very hard to track that population down. But of the 170 who've been nominated, that only fits 21 people. Currently, of those who have been contacted and agreed to accept services, that's about 23% of those that have been contacted so far, 35 people, and about 77% who've been contacted have chosen not to accept services. So when we take a look at the percent of folks who are accepting services, whether they are male or female, this is kind of an amazing finding. If I'm going to brag just a little bit about our team, nationally, we see the exact opposite. So if you can see on the right-hand side here where it says yes, under the red and the gray bars, we have more male candidates or more male participants accepting services than female participants. In fact, about 3 to 7 times higher than other states, which is incredibly exciting. When we take a look at the candidates who are accepting services by their age groups, the age group that is accepting the most services is age 19 to 24, followed by 30 to 34. Okay, Theresa. All right, and then finally, the most requested services to date. Now, this is done by most requested because Angel has well over 19 types of services, or close to 19, that he's able to offer to folks and get them connected with. But we see that behavioral, mental health, crisis intervention, that's the #1 services requested, followed by peer support, then substance abuse counseling, job training, help getting a GED, some basic supplies. Angel mentioned someone needing diapers the other day. That falls under basic supplies. Sometimes it's maybe needing a bus pass to get from one part of town to another. Then there's emergency housing or temporary housing. And then the other category encompasses a whole bunch of things that maybe only one person has taken advantage of. So that's how we are doing so far. I think Angel and his team have done an excellent job connecting folks with services. And as we move forward, the goal will be to get more folks to take services if they're needed. But the bottom line is most people who we've spoken with are very, very receptive to the message of nonviolence.
Now we have Angel Garcia, who will talk more about this slide.
So, yeah, I'll jump in here again. And so I tell people all the time, that strapping young lad on the left, yes, that is me, like 7 years ago, like 70 pounds ago. But pretty much this is what I do. You know, I build relationships with the people that we're out there talking to. And a lot of the times, you know, like I, for one, from personal experience know that people are not going to change when we want them to. They're going to take that step when they're finally ready, you know. So the message that I give them is that I will be here. Just save my number. That's all I ask of you. If you don't want services today, if you don't want services 6 months from now and you need them a year from now, if I'm still around, I'm going to get them for you. I'm going to work with you. And it's happened where 6 months down the line, I get a phone call out the blue. Hey, remember me? You came to talk to me this and this time. Can you help me get my license, or can you help me get this, or whatever it may be? There's one person that has called me from 4 different numbers, but the good thing is that somewhere they either memorize my number or they have it written down somewhere, because they keep calling, and that's what I try to reinforce with them, you know, like, it doesn't matter if you don't need my help today. If you need my help tomorrow, next week, a month from now, then I'll still be here for you. And I'm just a source of referrals. So my job is to talk to the person, and from our community-based organization partners, I try to gauge who this person is going to feel most comfortable with. Like I have a client who's been in the life for over 30 years. You know, he became a gang member same age as me, as 12 years old, and he's 40 years old now. And I referred him the last time to a program that has an individual who did over 30 years of incarceration here. And when I matched them up, they clicked instantly. For one, because they know a lot of the same people, and for two, because that vision of hope was there. Like, man, if you could do it after 30 years of all this, then I could do it as well. So we try to match up people with the service providers that are going to fit their needs, and they're going to make them feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, it's about them. We also advocate for them. I've joined court hearings. I've gotten people released to a third party, which is me, so that they could work with me. There's been a couple of times where I get a call from a service provider. Hey, this person hasn't showed up for their last couple of appointments. Policy is that we have to discharge them. I advocate for them, like, hey, we're dealing with people here that have never in their life ever wanted services and are giving it a try for the first time. I'm glad you called me. Let me go look for them. Let me go talk to them. Let me see what's going on. Let me see if I could get them focused again. So like it says in the bottom, ensure services are responsive to the participant and to participants' progress, to make sure they're accessible. I've been known to go out in the community after hours and pick people up, give them rides, provide things that are not accessible after 5 p.m. And that's another thing that we're addressing too, us as VIP, because Gerri and I were having a conversation about this, and it's pretty much like your emergency better happen between 8 and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. If not, you're screwed, So we're trying to address those issues as well, because as we all know, emergencies happen all hours of the night mostly, and on the weekends, and we have to be there for them, Next slide, Teresa.
So now we'll have Gerri Bachicha talk a little bit about sort of the philosophy behind the strategies and the direction of the work.
Great.
Thank you,
And
Angel.
so real quickly, because we're starting to run out of time and I want to give time for questions. Again, I want to thank you all for the opportunity for us to present tonight. And we share your concerns about the gun violence in the Southeast in particular, as well as the rest of the city, and the need for urgent action and urgency in our actions, and the need for intentional actions and community-driven input and action as well. So this is a slide of the strategic departmental shifts that reduce gun violence based on the current pilot model that we're working with. We're shifting from addressing today's shootings to preventing tomorrow's shootings. And that's through the custom notification piece. You know, folks who are victimized by gun violence, who are often who we go out to see, have a high rate of becoming involved in the cycles of violence. And so we're offering that intervention at that point in their lives when there is a critical moment in time where they're rethinking the path or the direction that their life may be going in. Also, you'll see shifts in policing hotspots to deterring through what's called a policing strategy called focused deterrence, which you can kind of Google if you would like. I don't have a lot of time to go into that right now, but basically we're working with the individuals at highest risk of entering into those cycles of gun violence, and we're offering them, we're leading the social services to them, as well as you know, trying to intervene in the cycles of retaliation and using a strategic deterrence to stop the violence before it happens. Also, we're responding to the gun violence incidents in a different way. And let me explain that normally the process is the police go out and they, you know, get to the crime scene, and then they interview everybody and they start the investigation. And there may be some referrals due to, you know, some of the situational things that they're seeing at that moment. But the majority of the time, that's kind of where the police continue along the lines of investigations. Now the police are actually working with us on the custom notifications to follow up on the reducing trauma, reducing harm, understanding how these cycles of violence continue if they're not addressed, and really working closely with Angel and the community-based organizations to see the cycles of crime in the communities through a public health lens. So that's a huge shift in the police department. We're sharing more data, and as you can see, you know, Saundra presented information on some of the shootings that are happening in Southeast. And, you know, we look in the future to reduce the over-reliance on law enforcement to create safe communities and increase community-driven safety initiatives. So that is, I just wanted to go over that. And also I did want to address a question by Patrick Barrett. It was a great question. All of this is really important, that we work across city divisions, that there's no silos in our work, and that there is a lot of communication. And as we continue on in our strategic planning process, we are walking side by side with ACS. Theresa and Angel and Saundra and I speak with ACS at least once a week, if not more, on how we're going to move forward. And we'll be taking a lot of input from the community on how they see us as well, partnering with ACS. And there's many intersects that I can't get into tonight because we only have an hour, but it's a great question. We also work with other divisions like Family and Community Services, Office of Equity and Inclusion, and you know, the list goes on, ADAPT, under the fire department as well. So thank you for asking that question. There can't be silos or this won't work. And that includes within the community as well as across law enforcement agencies that don't normally work together as well. So Theresa, next slide.
Thank you, Gerri. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our hopes and some of the upcoming efforts or initiatives that are underway. Earlier, I shared a model that was built out over the past year, but like Gerri had mentioned, we only had a couple of staff on board, and we had absolutely no, or not absolutely no, but very limited data capacity. And so a lot of infrastructure needed to be put in place just to get positions or resources to access positions. And to be able to, start to get, also technical assistance from some of our consultants who also have lived experience and are folks in the community here in Albuquerque and also nationally who have done this work successfully in multiple areas throughout the country. So now that we came on board, a couple of us newer staff, we are looking at ways that we can expand the existing model. And so one promising initiative is the hospital-based violence intervention program. And this is also a proven strategy around gun violence reduction. And this is a medical, and community partnership. But the goal of the hospital-based violence intervention program is to work with several teams that have concerns and commitment across the community to focus on patients that are at risk of repeat violent injury. And as they're linked to community-based resources, we know that, we will ensure that there is a continuum of care beyond beyond their acute needs, and that there's some intentionality of providing them with social services to themselves and their families once they leave. So the work with APD, we're able to sort of intervene directly in the communities, but also at the point of a shooting or an incident. But another key area is the hospitals, because, oftentimes, law enforcement won't even know about what's going on. But in the hospital, we're able to access folks as sort of a golden moment where they're kind of focused and sober, and being able to talk to them about what their needs are. Many of the clients that we have engaged with, Angel has engaged with, have, like he said, have had needs in the evening time or even in the midnight hours. And because most organizations, community and system-wide, right, kind of shut down at a certain time, we want to make sure that the hospitals are communicating with us and not releasing folks without a plan, especially if there's any safety concerns. Many of the clients do have, they are in fear of their life, or there's maybe, word of a possible retaliation, or their family members. And so we're able to, just talk to them and see what needs that they have beyond the social worker that's able to engage with them there. And so it's really super important that we're able to provide ongoing crisis intervention. And really the whole underlying sort of philosophy or concept behind this is that we're trying to meet people where they're at, and not just, in the detention facilities or in the hospitals, but we want to make sure that, we will pay home visits, which a lot of hospitals aren't able to do or don't have the resources. And so, we'll do whatever is possible to support them and even talk to the community and the neighborhood. In addition to that, we are looking for resources for additional street outreach for community members specifically. So because Angel is only one person and 170 people is a lot of people. And we know that he's not also able to, reach some communities based on, the diversity of other participants. And so we want to make sure that we have a team that is well equipped and that they have, lived experience. And we do not want to necessarily build more city sort of staff, but we want to be able to provide resources to the community so we can get more folks on the ground. And nationally, we call them, they're named different things. Some of you may be familiar with the Pathways Navigator model here in Bernalillo County. It's very similar to that. However, they are exclusively focused on gun violence and violence interruption at the point of threats or a possible retaliation. And these are folks that come from the community and that are understand the dynamics, that they're, have relationship with the folks there and have respect and credibility. So we call them credible messengers, peace ambassadors, violence interrupters. And so our goal would be to find additional resources for community members to be able to be employed and then also be able to do violence interruption and also life coaching. One other way that we are applying for resources right now is to build a trauma recovery center that is a community rooted facility. The city has offered some infrastructure and a facility so we can develop this, but this has been an ongoing conversation specifically within the Black community about the lack of access to mental health services that are trauma informed. And so right now, the team is applying for resources wherever possible so that way we can build out this center, which would be a combination of clinicians, outreach workers, and a safe space and a hub where families can come and connect to resources as well as get community healing. And so this is one of our major goals over the next year is to get this model up and going based on what community has said is needed. And we're also really focusing on the disparities with the Black community and also with Black and Brown boys, which you see nationally and even locally, are disproportionately impacted by gun violence as well as incarceration. So the next slide is around community engagement. Just want to share a little bit about our current efforts and what we're hoping to expand, and also ways that you can be involved with this work. So we currently have the VIP All-In, which I talked about a little bit. We have invited, I would say at this point, well over 30 organizations that are community-based, mostly grassroots organizations, to participate in our network. We want to create a continuum of care and alignment amongst our services. So we're sharing resources and really breaking up those silos. This is wide open to anyone who wants to participate. And we share resources, and it's just a really good platform to, talk about our needs and what's happening on the ground. So if any of you have interest, please let us know. Angel and I are actually meeting with a new community-based organization almost every week, in all different levels, whether it's the faith-based community or it's mental health service providers or workforce development or educational centers. We are interested in all types of social services because, as mentioned in the data, every individual and family has unique needs, and we want to custom and tailor our approach with them and make sure that we're relevantly supporting them. We have the restorative justice or the rapid accountability work that we mentioned briefly earlier, and we are right now trying to develop we are developing a training and an approach where we can be able to provide training to folks so that way they can do it within their own sort of spaces and sectors, because we know that they need safe spaces. They do not want law enforcement there. But the Trauma Recovery Center is also a place in other jurisdictions where they've been able to provide community healing resources and even bring together offenders and victims and help them to work through some of their conflict. And, I just want to bring up a quick point that many times offenders and victims are family members or their loved ones. So we're talking about interpersonal violence and other things. So it's not always strangers, but oftentimes these conflicts are, amongst loved ones. And so we want to make sure that we are not, incarcerating folks and not dealing with or sweeping the issue under the rug, and that we're helping folks to mitigate conflict and supporting them in as many ways as possible. We are not doing enough family engagement. We want to do more. And I think that's just like across the board. We obviously are only reaching out to participants. We will only communicate with their family members if they give us consent. But really, we know that it takes a whole tribe and a whole village. And so our goal is to not just support an individual in their recovery process or in their transition or whatever it is they're trying to achieve in the next iteration of their life, but making sure that their family has the resources they need, like their children. Most of these folks that we're talking about that are even in the high risk profile, the 0.01% have children. And, they're a brother, they're a sister, they're an auntie, uncle. And so somebody loves them and cares about them. And how can we engage the whole family and the community for those who are estranged from their family members, to be able to, work on healing the entire unit and not just the individual. Next is neighborhood engagement. Specifically, I think you are, probably interested in this, but hopefully, as we think about a communal approach, right, and a community-centered approach, it really requires the whole neighborhood to be involved. APD is very clear, they do not have all the answers. We are very clear, we do not have all the answers. And so, but only together, right, are we able to collaborate and provide meaningful, authentic, and sustainable services. But we need to make sure folks are resourced and we understand what the needs are. I talked a little bit already about the street outreach, but we're trying to grow that. But we're also here to provide community and with data from our research and from our engagement community members thus far. A lot of them have said that they do not have access to data. They don't even understand, like they know that gun violence is an issue, depending on where they're at in the community and whether or not they're, you know, able to hear the gunshots, or they have family members who are directly or indirectly impacted, but they, you know, don't have access to the information that oftentimes systems and institutions hold that they should be sharing with community equally. And so that way they can be able to drive their own efforts. And then finally, you know, sorry, Gerri just mentioned the strategic plan process. We're in the process of launching. We have not launched yet. We're getting ready to launch now in July, our first ever strategic plan process. And so after we completed sort of the infrastructure, some of the infrastructure development, or at least the first iteration of the pilot and the concept model, we've identified what has worked and what hasn't worked. And so we've done some internal reflections, but it is clear that not just in the strategic planning process, the community needs to be a part of all of the approaches and the strategies. And so strategic planning is just one piece, but it's super important so that way we're planning together for the future. And so we are inviting all community stakeholders, which includes traditional leaders, community-based organizations, advocates, families, individuals who've been impacted, and you know, anyone in elected officials and in regular folks. We want grandmas to come who know what's going on at the corner. And so we want folks to be involved in the process. So we are looking at a triangulation with various methods that'll include focus groups, that'll include surveys out to the broader public. And then we're also convening some focus groups with and interviews with formerly incarcerated folks who have had experience with guns, and being able to get input from everybody. And so, you know, we look forward to you sharing information with folks who you think would want to participate, if not you yourself, and let us know how, you know, you would like to support this work, but also, you know, we need you. Like, we cannot do this work without the community, period. I just wanted to share some quotes from the community readiness survey that we conducted in the Southeast between November and January of this, of the end of last year and the beginning of this year, which was right smack in the middle of the pandemic. But we did engage different key stakeholders in the community, specifically in the Southeast/International District. And these are some of the things that were said. This is not an exhaustive list of quotes, but I just wanted to lift up a few things that folks are saying intergenerationally. I don't think that the community has any knowledge of the statistics. The young people of these days are mostly neglected in this community, so they act up to get attention or clout. People living in the street are my community. No one looks out or helps them. There are a lot of cultural differences here, so some people are afraid of others and won't get involved. People that are non-English speakers get left out a lot, returning citizens as well. I would say that there is a need for more or better services, and better collaboration is needed. This is the most densely populated area of Albuquerque and the most diverse. 28 different languages are spoken here. And so there's a lot more that was shared. And, you know, of course, this was all anonymous, but we definitely wanted to, you know, share a little bit about our efforts. And again, it's been only 1 year of our pilot model. Most jurisdictions that are doing it, other places around the country, it takes at least 2 to 3 years to even have the conversations about initiating something like this. So a lot of the folks we spoke to across the board were like really surprised that not only was the commitment expressed, but resources were given. It's not enough though, because, you know, this was all launched during the pandemic. One of the greatest tools that we have is relationship building and connection, human interaction and connection with the most impacted. And because of the pandemic, it really inhibited our ability to be out in the streets and to connect with folks because they didn't feel safe. And so now that we have reopened, we are really enthusiastic and excited about engaging more deeply with the folks who need to know about this, work. And so we're talking about different approaches of community engagement, from like just sharing basic information for those who just want data or statistics. And then there's also, you know, ways to build advisory groups. And then, but ultimately we want to get to the transformational stage where we're actually giving resources like monetary and other important resources to the community, like even the infrastructure I was talking about with the Trauma Recovery Center, so that way the community can lead these efforts independently. But we can't do it alone, and you know, we need just everybody to be on board. And you know, we know that everyone is equally concerned here, and we're just thankful for this brief time with you. And we'll now open up the queue for questions.
And before the questions start, I just wanted to make a comment about the hospital-based intervention. Through assertive outreach, the last time Theresa went with me, but I visited him 3 times in the hospital, and the 3rd time, he finally, so I was trying to convince him to help me let him get out of Albuquerque, because if he continues on the current trajectory that he's on, he's gonna get killed. And the 3rd time, yeah, he went for it. He's still in the hospital, and that's a crucial time, because that's when you're healing from a wound like that, you're really reflecting on your life. And he finally agreed, so I'm in talks with a safe house in Chicago to help him get out of Albuquerque. And that's how that hospital-based intervention is really going to help our efforts when we reach them in that critical window period when they're reevaluating their life situation. So I see 3 questions in the chat. The first one is—
Really quickly, Angel, just to piggyback off of that one example. So this individual had a severe firearm injury. They were wounded with an assault rifle in the stomach. And I just, you know, this is so serious. And, you know, for those who have actually been shot, you know, this is this is traumatic. Even us talking about this work is traumatic for folks who have been victimized. And oftentimes oftentimes I would say a majority of the time, the offenders are often victims themselves and have only, you know, retaliated or have internalized, right? And projected violence onto others because they didn't have an outlet or didn't have the support they needed. And so we see every individual as equal, valuable, worthy. So we take a human-centered approach at everything that we do and make sure that folks know that they belong in our community. And we only in the most extreme circumstances will provide relocation, but there are resources, and this is across the nation. We have a victims compensation board where folks are able to access services for funerals, to get their families out. We have women who need to get out with their children and can't afford housing. And so, you know, it's just really, I did like these situations are so extreme. We're talking about 0.01%. We're not talking about the general population or even at risk. We're talking about the very high risk, the most high risk. And so sometimes that gets lost when we talk about our work. And so just want to be clear that these are really volatile severe cases that we're talking about here. And so I'm going to close out the presentation because I can't see anything in the chat, but go ahead and facilitate the chat, Angel.
So the first question was from Jeffrey, from Archie. The question is, how is VIP interacting with the Gibson Medical Center homeless hut?
So I'd like to address this question, and thanks again for asking. Again, this is, you know, one of the things with our street outreach that we're researching is who is already doing street outreach in Albuquerque and what are they doing? And guess who is doing the most street outreach in Albuquerque? That's the people who work with the homeless population in Albuquerque. And so our interactions aren't necessarily with and I'm thinking you're thinking of the Gateway Center. So I hope I'm addressing the right place. But we definitely, Angel and Theresa and I have started to create, especially Angel, the relationship with the homeless outreach folks. Also housed in our building are Sebastian and Selena, who work for the city and are out working with the homeless population every day. So a great deal of the people that are on Angel's caseload have unstable housing. And as you can imagine, that creates a lot of tension in their lives and can keep them in the cycles of violence that they have been victim to already. So yeah, thanks for that question. We're hoping that Theresa had mentioned in the Trauma Recovery Center that the city has offered space. That space would be in the Gateway Center if we ever got the funding for the Trauma Recovery Center. And I just want to mention that the city is really dedicated, our program is dedicated to not building out more staff here at the city, but rather passing the funds through to the community to be able to build out and align services within the community. So we won't be holding on to that money to build out our own staff. This is pretty much it. And for our city staff. I also wanted to kind of tie that in with, are you working with the Coalition for Safer Albuquerque? I know that coalition works a lot with ACS. And as we get closer and closer to seeing what the intersects between VIP and ACS are, that we will also be getting information from the coalition as well. And we're really going to be ramping up that process within the next month. So we look forward to really opening up all the channels of communication with the community. And, you know, community is defined in so many multiple ways. So we will have multiple channels and multiple venues, and we expect to do this for many, many months, like 6 months to 9 months, so that we have a real strong strategic planning, as well as action steps along the way, as well as action along the way, concrete action, as we move forward with the community helping to take us from that pilot and scale that pilot into what they feel that they need to see for Albuquerque. You all are the experts. You all are impacted, and we will be continuing to talk to you for many, many months and getting your help in developing feedback loops that will stay with our program in perpetuity forever, so that you always get the feedback that you need and want to hear.
Gerri, there was a question on how VIP is funded, and then after you respond to that, I wanted to share a little bit about what's going on nationally with funding for communal violence.
So before you guys get to that question, can you answer Susie's question? What concrete things can community members do to support our work?
Yes, so sharing resources, and resources is everything from, we talked about diapers, we talked about different needs that families have, especially now during the pandemic. Like everyone has the same sort of needs. And so there's, I think, a list of things that we can share out to you all that we see most often our participants are asking for. In addition to that, we want more involvement in the strategic planning process. So if you want to be a part of our process in the hat of your official position, but we're really looking for community members. Like, we want community members from across stakeholder groups to be able to participate. So if you know folks that you think would be a good, that they would be interested and have a lot of that, a lot to share in their experience, we want to bring them to the table. We definitely want those connections. So the connections that you all are providing us in the chat, if we don't have them already, we are meeting, like I said, with new folks every single week. It's a pretty big community. And right now, like, I have a list on my wall. So we have the faith-based community, the ethnic-based centers, Native, Indigenous, African-American, Asian Pacific Islander, and others. We have local businesses, we have neighborhood associations, we have traditional, non-traditional leaders, we have, the community policing councils, and other law enforcement agencies. We have health-based mental and behavioral health services. We have education workforce. We have social services, and then, but most importantly, we have like advocates, and we need folks that have direct experience at the table. Like, so for us, those are the ones who oftentimes we don't hear from. We have a lot of intermediaries, but very similar to like we're a city agency, right? But when you go to elected officials, they don't want to hear necessarily from organizations, even if they're community-based. They want to hear from the constituents. They want to hear from the people themselves. So we want to hear from everybody, but especially folks that are on the ground. And so, you can continue to recommend folks. And also if you, data sharing. So if we can go to your community places like where folks already convene, we'll come share the data and share the work we're doing. What we heard a lot in the readiness survey was that nobody knows what's going on, and there's like zero gun violence programs. And so a lot of people do not know that anything is happening, except that there are a lot of shootings and no one is addressing it. So there is some work being done, even beyond us, but we are more than happy to go out to your community center, to go out to your church, to go out to your community, share data, talk about the models that we've seen work, and then talk about our work and how we can partner together to make it more successful. And those are just a few key ways. Angel?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that too, we started our program with just Gerri and I in the middle of the pandemic. We're blessed to have Saundra and Theresa with us now. And now that restrictions are loosening up, a major part of our program, because there's only like 28 cities in the whole country that have a similar type program to this. And the most successful ones have the most community buy-in as well. So we're also looking for, in the future, community events, marches, whatever we could do, just like in South Bend, Indiana, for example, there was one gas station that was a problem. Every night there'd be a shooting because that was a hangout spot. My counterpart over there, the person that does what I do here over there, took it upon himself to get council members, faith-based leaders. They took a speaker, a big Bluetooth speaker, played gospel music from 10 p.m. to like 2, 3 a.m. And there hasn't been any more shootings at that gas station. I mean, of course, the shootings spread out through other little places in the city, but that wasn't a problem area anymore. It wasn't a residential area. So just little things like that. However, the community wants to get involved and help us out in the future. Theresa and Gerri and I and Saundra will be all ears. We invite suggestions, ideas, and collaboration, most importantly.
Yeah, and I would just add love. People need love right now. We got to show more compassion. People are really traumatized right now from the pandemic, and it has really exacerbated gun violence across the nation. So one other thing to piggyback off of Angel was around the faith-based community work. So I worked in Oakland and I worked in Stockton, and they had some of the highest gun violence rates, and helped them to build out their trauma recovery center to a national model that was 100% community led, but funded by the city, the state, and the federal government. And then in Oakland, they reduced gun violence by over 50%, and have also reduced the number of officer involved police shootings. But a big part, and actually I would say the biggest part of their strategy was having the faith community going out into the streets and doing vigils and demonstrations, and not against anyone. They were just showing love to the community and saying how much they care. And that had such a tremendous influence on the gun violence reduction rates. We have more data on that too, we can share on what they used and what worked for them. Sorry, Saundra, you have your hand raised, sorry.
I'll be really quick, but shameless plug for community criminologists everywhere. Something concrete that community members can start doing in order for our program to work really well. We need you guys to spread the word to each other that we exist, because we are here to intervene in gun violence. And as you do that, it's important that you begin to kind of get to know one another, even if it's just a tiny bit. Because the more community knows one another, the more they're able to even reach out on each other's behalf, because we can be that bridge to these different resources, we can be the bridge to that political economy that sometimes communities that in the Southeast, they may feel like they're isolated from. So please start getting the word out for us that we're here, and get to know each other just a little bit.
And Susie,
We have a couple of hands that have been raised for a minute. We have Jeffrey and then Susie, sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
Jeff, Archie already asked the questions in the chat, I think, and you've answered them. Actually, the VIP, how is it funded? Is it going to be a continuous funding to stay in place, or?
Right, so I think I could take that. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Right now, we are funded through both the Albuquerque Police Department as well as Family and Community Services. So with the salary funding and some funding for some contracts that for some community service providers, we have close to $1 million kind of allocated to our program just for operational kind of costs. And that will continue as long as the city council continues to okay that funding in the budget. We have a tremendous support from the city council, and I think that they're willing to look at increasing our funding over the years. But they also, we just completed our first year in June, basically, where we did a very phased pilot launch. And so we need to give them the information, and we also need to hold our strategic planning with the community so that the community can weigh in on how we expand the program. So I hope that helps. As Theresa said, we are applying for funding, and we also have floated legislation for the last 2 years to New Mexico State Legislature. And this is something you all might think of in the future to support or help with. And that is to expand programs all across the state for violence intervention, because the whole state has experienced an increase in gun violence. And, a good part of that money would also come to Albuquerque because we're the largest city in the state, as well as Las Cruces. So that kind of funding from the state would be really, really helpful, and would be that sustained formal funding. And of course, Theresa can talk to a bunch of grants that are coming down federally. And as far as the federal housing dollars, what we're seeing is that the people that we're working with really aren't eligible for those federal funding dollars. They are actually needing to be relocated rather than catching up on their rental. So we work a lot with Crime Victims Reparation Commission to get the funding to move people to a more safer location. And so that happens quite a bit, but we would definitely try and tap into those monies if we had a client that was, in arrears because of the pandemic on their money. So I think that takes care of that question. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to answer Susie's next question. How do we work hand in hand with APD, because they're first on the scene? So
And I also saw that Lieutenant Young is here, so I'd also like to invite him to join in on the conversation, if that's okay with you all.
yeah, no, that's fine. And so since Lieutenant Young is here, obviously APD is first on the scene, so they're the ones out there, they're securing the scene, they're hearing the people talk. And I get referrals from detectives. Hey bro, I'm hearing that they want to retaliate. Can you go out and talk to this person? Can you go out and talk to this family? We also get referrals. Gerri and I have had to go to the hospital because the detective will call us, hey, I have this person here, can you come talk to them? So other than the shooting reviews and how we identify candidates, Most of the time, we get referrals from field officers, commanders, and detectives. And especially now that more and more APD officers are learning about our program, they're starting to reach out more and more.
And I'd like to open up to any of the CPC members if you have questions that you haven't put in the chat, to certainly jump in and ask.
So Archie, yes, we have been in contact with Khadija Bottom. We have met with her and we have had talks with her.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angel.
I just wanted to kind of emphasize and you know, Officer Young, you can jump in at any time too, that we have a shooting review every week, and Theresa mentioned that in the presentation as well as Angel. And before we can go out to see anybody that's been victimized by gun violence, as part of our custody notifications, leading with services and intervening in the cycles of violence, the police department has to make sure that that we're not interfering with the investigation at that point in time. So we want to get out as quickly as possible, but we want to make sure that we're not going to mess up the investigation. So the police department does definitely, you know, clear us before we can go in. Officer Young?
Yeah, basically when we're out there, we're doing referrals. When we're having these shooting incidents, it's put out to our field units right here on a daily basis. Command staff is advised of any types of shootings which are going on. They work with the detectives to make sure, as was said, it's not interfering with ongoing investigation, but we also are trying to look at to see what type of violence is going on, what type of threat level we're dealing with, and we'd want to get it out to you guys so you can go on ahead and follow up on it. And it has come out in training to the officers related to this program. And so it's referral based is what's going on and is in place.
We've really seen an uptick in referrals in like the last 6 months from the police department as they kind of wrap their heads around this program, and as VIP staff wrap their heads around this program, particularly in, you know, really looking for indications that there might be retaliation. And so we're getting a lot more calls from detectives around, hey, we think that folks are really upset about this for good reason, and you want to talk to them about grief, about trauma, about retaliation, about any services they may need. And so we've gone out on a lot of that. Also some accidental shootings as well, because we have seen quite a few, 21 to date accidental shootings for the year. So, you know, these type of things are, you know, the police will call us on to go out and referrals.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of our time with you all. Patrick, my brother, I miss you. Glad that you're here and support. The challenges that we face is just really getting the information out. People don't know what we're doing, and we're not doing enough to get the word out. So, you know, we need your continue to hold us accountable. Show up to the strategic planning session, but bring folks with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if everyone makes a pledge to reach 5 to 10 people, or just to spread the word, even with your own neighborhood, in your own neighborhood, if you all are, you know, in the Southeast or have connections and relations there, like, let your neighbors know. And we want to be a resource, but remember, it's not just about identifying harm, it's about healing the harm and trying to find ways to restore people back to their righteous place in the community. And so there's no judgment from us. When we go out, like, most of us, you know, like, we just don't know, for those of us who've never experienced gun violence and haven't been caught up in the cycles of violence, don't understand, you know, the underlying drivers and causes. So for us, you know, it's about love. It's about making sure that people have the resources that we need, that we're able to, you know, shut down these detention facilities. And we're also, this is community, this is reinvestment, using APD dollars to reinvest back in community-based approaches. Our job is to, just like a lot of our other community partners, like they get funding from the city, we're trying to expand that funding. And so one quick thing I didn't have a chance to share was that, there's a fund peace movement that's national. There's a Black and Brown consortium around gun violence prevention and intervention that we're a part of. And, this team was actually responsible for pushing the administration to give $5 billion and federal resources for specifically for community-based violence intervention. Okay. And so when we get those funds and our effort is to try to continue to get we're going to RFP that out to the community. But right now what they've done is they're leveraging existing grant programs and building it out to focus on the specific population and on initiatives that are focused on this, on these types of strategies. So there's actually funding streams, federal funding streams across 26 different programs. There's so many right now. And so the Department of Justice, we have the National Institutes of Health. Then we have federal dollars, right? And we're looking towards the state and the local entity and trying to leverage our power as a city entity to apply for this funding so we can get it out to community. But the community also needs support in building out capacity. A lot of folks shut down during the pandemic or started working just wholly volunteer based, especially mutual aid groups. And so we want to partner with everybody, but it's going to require openness. And people sitting down and talking to us, and don't make assumptions on what we do and what we don't do, because for us, like we don't have all solutions, but only together can we create a larger approach that's way bigger than the city. And so sorry, I'm not going to go on a tangent. I get really passionate. Jeffrey had his hand up, and I'm sorry, Angel, did you want to talk first?
No, I just wanted to say last thing. We failed to mention that we only have a 3% recidivism rate right now. Out of everybody that we've spoken to, only like 8 people have got rearrested, but mostly for like drug offenses, not even violent crimes.
Yeah, and we're talking about the population that we're focused on. Again, the high-risk population and profile we're talking about are reoffenders, right? People that are consistently, using firearms. And so there's a pattern there. In addition to that, we're also with our hospital-based violence intervention, and I don't know if I was clear, but UNMH has actually agreed to partner with us to make sure that we formalize our program in the hospitals and that we have access to patients and their families. And this is going to reduce taxpayer dollars and investment in emergency services, for example. And we know that because of the pandemic, we need more hospital resources. We don't have enough, so we can't afford to be having, taxpayers pay into, this need and this harm when we can actually help folks, and so that way they don't return to jail and they don't end up in the grave, and they definitely don't have to go back to the hospital. And so that's our whole goal.
Awesome.
Theresa, can you put your contact information in real quick?
Awesome.
Sorry,
Archie, one quick question. We'll let Archie do his last quick question, and then we will definitely, this is a huge issue, and it sounds like this community really is passionate about what you do, and we would definitely put your information out and love to have you back again as a follow-up. Archie, do you have
my contact information? I gave my contact information in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get all the questions answered. That was my question. There's a few more questions in the chat.
If we can, there was a few more that we didn't get to on the strategic planning. So the strategic planning meeting, I did put in the chat, it is not one meeting. It'll be multiple meetings through multiple venues for multiple months. And so we will, we're bringing up our website live by the end of June. And we'll have information on our website, the city website, as well as we can come back to this meeting like Susie asked us to, and announce, even just for 10 minutes, this is what's happening, with the strategic planning. You can also contact Theresa at any time and let her know, as well as myself or Angel.
Yes,
yeah,
please keep us in communication with what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Part of, and as a part of that, so because we didn't have any dedication to communications, that was a limit in our resources. So we just brought in a public ally, Anissa. She's amazing. She's working on a communications plan and strategy, but that'll also, you know, be informed and driven by the strategic plan process. So we're not going to wait until all of that's completely done. We're already looking at external strategies on how we can get information out on a more timely basis. We're getting ready to launch our website. We're also going to launch a social media platform. We don't have those up yet. We're barely pulling things together. So thanks for your patience with us. But we will also be looking at other forms and methods of getting information out on a regular basis, so you have updates. But we'll also have a dashboard where you can track our progress over time that Dr. Saundra is working on.
Unfortunately for us, we have Angel on the council, so we have a direct source of information.
Exactly.
Yes, and I think this would be extremely important for Virginia and the work that she's doing.
Yeah, and I also used to work with the International District Healthy Communities Coalition. Those are all like my relations. I've been gone
That's
for a
where I
little
know
while.
you from.
So yeah, so if you all, you know, I want to go to the next meeting, but if you all can spread the word, get folks connected with us. I'm the primary contact right now for community engagement, so please feel free to reach out. And then of course, if you didn't catch my information or it's a sense of urgency, then Angel's always a really great person to contact.
Thank all of you so much for that information. And like the survey said, and I was one of the people that took the survey, we don't always know what's out there and how to push it out to the community. So we're looking forward to working directly with you guys, certainly at EPC. And yeah, reaching out to the community with all that information. I thank all of you for coming tonight. Thanks, Gerri.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Theresa,
Thank you all for
Saundra.
having us. We have a long road ahead, but we're going to do it together.
Yeah, we'll be here to support you.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Young, I'd like to book a ride along.
I'll just come on down to the substation. We'll get it set up.
Great. Thanks for
Awesome.
your support, Lieutenant.
Lieutenant, do you have the crime report stats for this evening? Were those forwarded on to you? I know this is like the
Yes, I do have the crime stats.
awesome. Then we
Would you
will.
like
I don't know. Would we like that or not? No, I'm just joking. Yes, because we definitely all are wanting to know what's going on within our community. And
Crime matters.
yes, it does. It does.
Okay. Well, let me get started. Basically, we're looking at crimes which occurred in between the time frame of May 19th of this year to June 15th of this year. And we're looking at all crimes, but we're not including traffic accidents in these numbers, just so you're aware. During this period of time, we had 1,050 incidents. And I'll go down each individual category of what we had. Dealing with crimes against persons, aggravated assaults and batteries, we had 103 incidents during this time. We had 7 incidents of criminal sexual penetration, 311 family offenses. We had 3 homicides, 1 kidnapping, 23 robberies, and these are all types of robberies, and 64 incidents of simple assault. For property crimes during this period of time, we had 83 auto burglaries. We had 75 auto thefts. We had 20 commercial burglaries. We had 1 forgery. We had 46 incidents of fraud. We had 114 incidents of larceny, and that's all types of larceny. We had 13 recovered stolen vehicles. We had 32 residential burglaries. We had 76 incidents of vandalism and 13 incidents of trespassing. And then of other types of crimes, we had 3 53 incidents of disorderly conduct, 29 incidents of drug violations, and made 23 DWI arrests. There were 76 warrants dealt with, and we had 22 weapon violation arrests during this period of time. And as far as crime prevention and community engagement activities, we had 5 community meetings through Zoom. 4 of them were Zoom, 1 was in person. We had 4 inspections on businesses, and with a lot of the community engagement activities are still postponed due to the issues with COVID, which we've been running into. And as far as use of force goes, we had a total of 18 incidents of use of force, and those are all levels. Level 1 incidents of use of force were only 4 incidents, and those are the lowest level of use of force, stuff like shows of force. Level 2 incidents of force, which are more like hands-on and putting someone in handcuffs or empty hand takedowns, we had 12 incidents, and we had 2 incidents of level 3 uses of force, which are a higher level of force. And that's what we had during that time frame.
And I'm sorry, did I miss the number of calls for service?
I'm sorry about that. I completely missed that.
No, it's okay.
During the period of May 1st to May 31st, we had 10,329 calls for service.
Wow.
For the month of May.
Wow, that's crazy.
Lieutenant, the level 2 involves tasers, perhaps?
Well, yeah, level 2 is basically anything like using a taser. It could be empty hand techniques where you take someone down with like a takedown. It could be potentially having the baton strike or something along in that area. Level 3 is a much higher level of force. So level 2 is basically the more common levels of force, which we're going to use when we're having to use like empty hand techniques or pain compliance, stuff like that. Level 1's uses of force will normally fall upon something like very low level control tactics or something like a show force, like you point your handgun or a taser at someone to try to gain compliance.
Yeah.
Is there any way to track, and I don't know whether it's, I'm assuming it's through you guys, like during a burglary, whether it's a car or a home or whatever, if a gun has been stolen, is that data tracked? I'm not going to ask you to give me that data, but I just wondered, and I don't know if that's something that Gerri, your group tracks somehow. And I asked because we had at the motorcycle shop across the street from us, we had a gentleman who had a loaded assault rifle in the back seat of his vehicle, and somebody smashed through the back window and picked it up and was walking around the neighborhood with it.
Yeah, I was on that call. I know exactly the one you're talking about. And
that's scary.
I believe they are tracking some of that stuff. I don't know if we have those information or not. I believe we record on their incidents when, gun involved and stuff like that, or items were taken, but I don't know if that information is available at this time or yet. I'd have to check that with our data collection people and our commander.
Yeah, I would like, if that's available, that's something that I think that our area command would certainly like data on, especially when I'm guessing most of us at night hear the rounds being fired, and wondering whether it's just in the air or at a car or at a person, or whether it's going to come through our window at our home.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the home burglaries was one a day, basically.
Residential burglaries, 32 total.
Yeah.
So just a little kind of tidbit on the stealing of guns. I have seen data from the past think it was 2020, 2019, sorry. And in 2019, more, and I don't have the exact data in my head right now, but you know, a couple of takeaways were that the majority of guns that are being stolen are out of cars, but there's also an awful lot that are being stolen out of houses. So, and that there's a ton of guns being stolen in the Northeast. I think people feel safe leaving their guns in their cars, and then you know, that. So I think that's a kind of, again, a public health issue. Like community groups, if they want to do something concrete, and RTCC gave me that information. So you know, we could probably get that from RTCC, but they you know, the community could take up a campaign on their own to kind of address that once they got the data around, you know, don't leave your guns in the cars, you know, take them in your home, make sure they're locked up. This is the amount of guns being stolen in Albuquerque. And, you know, folks, and that's what's reported. That's, of course, and I'm sure Lieutenant Young could also, you know, say something about, you know, we think that there's more that goes unreported, that guns are stolen and they go unreported. And maybe because they think maybe a family member or someone close to them took it, so they don't want to report it. But it is a problem. And it adds to the confusion around trying to solve the multiple challenges in reducing gun violence in our city.
And I think those numbers were like 1,100, more than 1,100 guns, and close to 400 of those 1,100 were from cars.
That's amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Lieutenant Young. I appreciate that information. I don't know if any of the other members have questions for either Lieutenant Young.
Just
on the
not for Lieutenant Young, Susie. For the PowerPoint slides, were you gonna, guys, was VIP gonna be able to send that out to us?
Yes.
Sure, we could do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we definitely will have y'all back and follow up. And I know, like I said, Angel's our inside source. So thank you all very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Do we have any questions from the community about for Lieutenant Young? I didn't see anything in the chat. I did get on moving on. Thank you all. Moving on to just additional items. And Ron, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you do or not. Kathleen had sent an email about a follow-up that she wanted us to just report back to the council on.
I propose that we, because it came in this afternoon, I haven't had a chance to track this down, that we postpone this for review until our next meeting next month. And that gives us several, like a month to review the recommendations and concerns that Kathleen presented to us, because I have to go back through all of my email and files and things like that to track all of that down.
Okay. All right. Well, does anyone have anything else on this hot night in June?
What was Kathleen wanting to bring up? I'm lost there.
She was wanting to change the 10 code, and I know she and the commander had gone back and forth and talked a little bit about changing the 10 code between the distinction of prostitution and
oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, and people who are being trafficked. So I know we're trying to keep on top of that, and yeah. So
yeah, we've done a lot of work on working on the recommendations to APD about this, and so I need to go I need to go back through all of my records and things that I've filed and that sort of thing to come together.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Do we have any questions from any other members? Virginia? Angelo? That was
No questions. Thank you. Thank you.
a lot of information to take in. I think we'll probably come back with lots of questions for you, Gerri. All right, well, if nobody has anything else this evening, then I would certainly entertain an adjournment.
And
I'll
I
make a
want to
motion.
thank all of our newest members,
Yes,
Angelo, Angel, and Virginia, for participating and you're walking in front of the shotgun of all of the things that come into the policing council meeting.
definitely. We're definitely looking forward to all that you're bringing to the table with us.
Pretty amazing to have a newest council member, and he's already integral member of already a community organization. Angel, bravo Zulu, brother.
Awesome. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, then I would say good night to everyone, or good evening.
Thank you all.
Good.
Unless
Good
Kelly
question.
wants to
Good night.
stay. Kelly, do you want to stay longer?
Bye-bye.
Oh, I'd love to stay another hour, but I guess everyone wants to go off, so that's fine too.
Gee,
Yeah, I
Kelly,
may have
you can stay for an hour by yourself.
Thank
may
you,
have a-
Kelly.
I may have a
Yeah.
use of force issue with my cats here soon if I don't go feed them. So,
All right.
Take care.
all right, everybody have a good evening. Thank you all
Good
for
night,
your
everybody.
participation.
Bye, Mike.
Thank you, Martisa.
Good night.